In this video, we are going to talk about a pretty interesting topic that we meet in everyday life, and it's going to be negotiation. Or we can straight away say the synonym, which would be the bargaining. So bargaining. And at first I would like to define what does it say when we mean negotiation, and then we will see two different ways how negotiation or the bargaining can occur, the distributive and integrative. So let's see the definition. Negotiation is the process that occurs when two or more parties decide to allocate scarce resources. So scarce resources are the ones which are not unlimited. So for instance, money usually are a scarce resource, so that we have to carefully decide how we are going to allocate these. Then every negotiation affects the relationship between negotiators and their feelings of themselves. So that when a negotiation takes place between two people, afterwards, after it's taken place, the relationship is going to be in some way influenced by what has happened. Now, let's think, before we get to two different kinds of bargaining, let's think about when two persons meet and they're going to talk about, let's call it the pie. Let's call it pie. Sometimes it is called also economic pie. So economic pie. So let's say we draw it this way, and now there are two people, so that there is, let's say there is Mark and there is Peter. And now both of these would like to have their share of a pie. Now, of course, there is going to be some split of this pie. So let's say one third will go to Mark and 2/3 will go to Peter. This is the result of the negotiation activity. And how did it take place? So basically both of them, when it comes, if I will just draw it a little bit differently. So both of them came, and this is the economic pie. So we have the same thing over here. And now both of them had some limitations. So Mark told himself, so Mark knew that he is not going to accept less than 1/3. So this is the extreme, this is the limit where Mark is willing to go. Also, Peter came with a limit. Peter told himself that he is also not going to leave with less than 1/3. So this was Peter's limit. So limit of Peter. So for sure, if the negotiation was successful, then Peter took this part, which was 1/3, and Mark took this part. And now the negotiation took place over this part over here, so that both parties are trying to push against each other to get more of the pie. And as you can see, Peter took 2/3, so which means Peter is a better negotiator. This, what I have just described, is the distributive bargaining. So it's right over here, and we will in a second talk about it. Now let's think about a different situation. If we imagine the pie again, so this would be our economic pie, and again Mark and Peter come, so Mark and Peter, and they are going to bargain differently. They will think, well, how can we help each other so that we get both as much as possible? Well, of course, that would mean that they are going to expand the pie. So the new pie after the negotiation would look something like this. So what have they done is that they have been productive with their negotiation, that it was a win-win situation. And thanks to the negotiation, both of them have more of the pie. This is called the integrative bargaining, which is right over here. So let's take a look at the definitions and bargaining characteristics. So the goal of the distributive bargaining is to get as much as possible. You have seen it here. Both parties have been pushing against each other so that they can get as much as possible. However, in the integrative bargaining, they would like to expand the pie so both get satisfied. You have seen it over here. They have been productive and they have expanded the pie. Now, the motivation under distributive bargaining is of course win-lose, because the more Mark gains, the less is Peter going to have. So it's win-lose. However, in integrative bargaining, it's a win-win situation. The better the negotiation is, the more they are both going to take. Now, the focus of the bargaining. In distributive bargaining, it's about positions. I cannot go beyond this point. So Mark had a limit over here and he's trying to position himself even further away. And Peter is trying to position himself also even further away. So it's about positions. However, in integrative bargaining, it's a little bit more tricky. It's about interests. So can you explain why this issue is so important to you? So that both parties are trying to discover why should they cooperate and how can they be beneficial to each other. Now, of course, the interests. In distributive bargaining, they are opposed, so they are going opposite each other. And under integrative, they are being congruent, cooperative. Now, the information sharing is an interesting point. Under distributive bargaining, of course, it's going to be low because every information that you possess is considered an advantage in negotiation. However, in integrative bargaining, you are really willing to share the information because the more information you share, the more productive you're going to be. Then we have the duration of relationship. Of course, under distributive bargaining, or I would say vice versa, distributive bargaining occurs under short-term relationships and integrative bargaining occurs under long-term relationships. So that was the negotiation.